Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Suburban Proletarian. For those of you in the British Commonwealth, today is Boxing Day, and I would just like to take this opportunity to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas and to say a big thank you to those of you who took time out of your busy schedules yesterday to extend Christmas greetings to me and mine. I think we can all join together in bidding a very enthusiastic farewell to the train wreck that was 2020. I have high hopes for 2021. I've got some big plans, and I hope to see all of you here then. Now, today I want to turn my attention back to a fairly familiar topic, and that is the topic of Casio 3-button digitals. I don't think it's any secret that I am a big fan of these simple little plastic watches. I think we're all very familiar with the Casio F-91W. This is probably the highest production wristwatch of all time anywhere in the world. And most of us either own one of these or have owned one of these or are planning on owning one of these at some time. And I can endorse that idea to the fullest extent. Then there are some slightly more unusual watches like the Japanese domestic market only F-84W. We've taken an in-depth look at that here on the channel, and I would encourage you, if you haven't seen it, to go back and watch the video I made about the F-84W. But today I want to talk about a slightly different topic. It relates to these watches, but it's sort of a nasty topic, and it is it's the issue of counterfeiting. Now, a lot of times when we think about counterfeit watches, we think of the Rolex Submariner, probably primarily, or maybe the Date Just. And in more recent years, bad actors, primarily in China, have gotten very good at knocking off watches from other companies like Panerai and even some of the high-end brands like Audemars Piguet and Patek Philippe and Vacheron Constantin. And but the truth is, the very most counterfeited watch in the world is the humble Casio F-91W. As many millions of these as are produced per year, there are millions and millions more like this one, which are completely bogus. And so I want to take a look this morning. We're going to go over to the tabletop and take a look at a couple of counterfeit Casio 3-buttons. Maybe it's basically a point of interest, but maybe it'll prove helpful to some of you. Some of them, like this one, are very, very easy to spot. I mean, this wouldn't fool anyone from more than probably the distance from the camera to here. You may not be able to see what's wrong with this watch right now, but you'll definitely see it once we're over on the tabletop. There are others, like an F-94W that I'm going to show you soon, that are actually very, very convincing. And I'm not even sure that they maybe don't incorporate some actual Casio parts in their construction. So without any further ado, let's go over and take a look at these watches on the tabletop. All right, everyone. So here we have a lineup, or what appears to be a lineup, of very basic Casio 3-button digitals. We've got the Japanese domestic market only F-84W. We've got the ubiquitous F-91W. I think probably everyone who's watching this video is at least somewhat familiar with the F-91W. If you don't already own one of these watches, they're very inexpensive, and I would encourage you to immediately go out and purchase one. I think that this is a really an essential addition to any watch collection, no matter how upscale or downscale your watch collection is. You should own an F-91W. This watch represents everything that's great about Casio digital watches, with nothing that you don't need. That actually could be said for most of these watches, if they were all real. Here we've got the A158WE, basically a copy of the F-91W, but with the addition of a stainless steel bracelet and a chrome-plated plastic case, otherwise virtually identical. Here we've got another F-91W, And here is the F-94W, which is an interesting model, generally not available everywhere, but certainly they can be found. Now, the problem with this lineup of Casio watches is that only 3 of them are real. One of them is a really, really terrible fake, and you may not be able to immediately tell which one it is looking at a video image. The other one is at least somewhat fraudulent. It's much better, but it's probably no less a counterfeit. As a matter of fact, in one way, it may be more of a counterfeit than the other. So let's just go down the line and eliminate the real watches. Obviously, the F-84W is real. I've done a video about this watch before, one of my all-time favorite Casios. The F-91W is also real. This one I purchased locally at my Walmart. It passes all of the tests. For those of you who don't know, there are a couple of things you can do. And this doesn't always help you out, as you'll see soon, but there are a couple of things you can do just quickly to check the authenticity of a Casio 3-button digital. First of all, if you push all 3 buttons at the same time, I don't think this is a counterfeit check, but it is, I think, a diagnostic thing. It basically illuminates or activates every single element on the LCD screen so that you can see that everything's working properly. Another thing you can do with a Casio, with a real Casio 3-button digital, is if you push the lower right-hand button and hold it in for a couple of seconds, you will get Casio displayed on the screen. And that is an anti-counterfeiting check, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, as I will soon show you. The A158 is, again, pretty much the same as the F-91W. It holds up under the same sort of scrutiny. This one was also purchased locally at Walmart, I think. I have no reason to believe that this is fraudulent. These 2 watches, however, are not real. This one may have some real components in it. This one is an absolute fraud. And the important thing to remember is that these were both purchased off of eBay as real Casios. Now, I was pretty sure that they were both fraudulent when I purchased them. That's why I purchased them, because I was specifically looking for counterfeits. And at a distance, you may not be able to see anything wrong with these 2. When you get a little bit closer up to this one, it becomes immediately apparent that this thing is not real. First of all, it doesn't have Casio on here. It does have F-91W, but there's no Casio name on there. As soon as you hold this up next to a real Casio F-91W, you can immediately see that it is a terrible copy. The crystal, the plastic on the crystal is all wavy and nasty and doesn't even appear to be made out of acrylic. It might be some kind of cheap styrene. The definition of the LCD screen is very, very substandard. Again, it doesn't say Casio, and it doesn't pass even the Casio test. If you push this in and hold it in, you're never going to see the word Casio on there. If you push in all 3 buttons, actually it does illuminate all of the, it does activate all of the elements on the LCD screen, but that's about it. Everything else about this watch, as soon as you would take it out of the package, you would immediately notice that it's not real. The strap is some kind of very garbagey, plasticky material. It doesn't have that rubbery feel. Obviously, these are all plastic straps, but this is a much lower grade of vinyl, and it kind of takes a set. You'll notice with a real Casio, it immediately snaps back. So it's very cheap, very sticky, plasticky material. You've got like this shiny molding mark on here, which you won't see on a real Casio. The texture's wrong. The case is obviously made of some very cheap material. The module in this, I did synchronize all of these today, so it's pretty close right at the moment. But the accuracy of the module in this is absolutely ridiculous. I don't even know how you could make an electronic watch that was as inaccurate as this. This, I don't remember if it gains or loses, but it's several seconds per day. I don't think you could make a quartz crystal that would be as inaccurate as this watch is. I don't know what sort of timing device is inside of here, but it is really, really terrible. I mean, just everything about the watch is terrible. It has no Casio logo on the buckle, although nothing else on this watch would fool you into believing it was a Casio. And of course, again, it doesn't say Casio on the face, but I don't think that makes this any less a counterfeit than if it did. The case back on this is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know if you'll be able to see how wavy and bent this thing is. It's got some sort of logo on the back that I don't know. That looks kind of like a sperm diving into the ocean on the back there. It does say made in China. I even have my doubts about that, however. I purchased this thing from China, and when it came shipped to me, it actually came out of Kyrgyzstan. So, I mean, who knows what the actual origins of this faux F-91W are. Now, I've had these watches for quite some time. I planned to make this video about 2 years ago. I'm actually surprised the battery has not died in this. I thought today, what can I do a video about? And I said, well, why don't I do a video about those counterfeit Casios? And I was half expecting the battery in this thing to be dead, but it's not. And the illumination is still working. So, but I mean, this thing isn't even a curiosity. It doesn't even tell time accurately. I can't even just maybe strap this to the handlebars on my motorcycle or something to use as a rudimentary clock. It's just awful. It does have all the functions of a Casio F-91W. It does have an alarm feature. It does have a chronograph, which seems to work, although I can't imagine the timing is very accurate on it. It does set in the same way by toggling through the first two screens into the third screen. It is now in setting mode. So it kind of apes a Casio F-91W, but I mean, just look at the surface of that crystal. It's just awful. And this thing would not, I can't imagine it would fool anybody. But this was sold as a genuine Casio. Now, I got it shipped. I purchased it and had free shipping from Kyrgyzstan for like $1.50 or something ridiculous like that, which is how I knew that it was not the real deal. But, you know, you can buy an F-91W in most parts of the world for less than $10. And even in the United States or Canada or Western Europe, it's maybe $15 or a little bit less. I just can't imagine why anybody would want to buy this thing. I imagine if it even had one raindrop on it, it would probably die. So this is just awful. But it just goes to show, even on a $10 watch, people are willing to go to the time and effort. I mean, this required making molds. It required making a stamp for forming case backs. It required molds for the straps and the buckles and the case and the crystal. It required developing a module that would mimic the F-91W. I mean, there's a bit of an investment there. And I can't imagine how you could make money selling these things for $1.50 and shipping them halfway around the globe, but people are doing it. Now, the F-94W is a little more insidious because this thing really doesn't have anything that immediately gives it away as being fraudulent. The markings on the strap are very similar to on a real Casio. The quality of the material is very, very similar. The molded in Casio logo on the buckle is very, very similar. It has a nice, dead, flat acrylic crystal as on the original Casio. The module has just as good definition as on the Casio. It passes the Casio push test. Amazing. The 3-button test, I imagine it passes as well. Yes, it does. The quality, the fit and finish, the case back looks just like the case back on the genuine F-91W, except this one says F-94W. It's a very, very similar quality. Nice, flat, everything is squared away on this case back. If I didn't know better, I wouldn't really be able to tell that this was a counterfeit at all. Now, there are a few things. First of all, I paid a ridiculously low price shipped for this watch as well. I also ordered it from China, and this one also didn't come from China. This one came from Sri Lanka. So I don't know what the story is there. But there are a few things that give away the fact that this is not a real watch. First of all, as I said, I paid a ridiculously low price for it. Oh, it even has a Casio hang tag, which looks very authentic, by the way. It's made from decent quality cardboard. It has all the right stuff printed on the back of it. But this was ridiculously cheap. I think I paid less than $5 for this. Couple of things that are wrong with it. First of all, the case back says that the watch was made in Japan. Now, as far as I know, F-91Ws are made in China. The F-84W is made in Thailand. The A-158 is made in China. I don't know that any of these watches have been made in Japan, at least not in the last, I don't know, 30 years maybe. Maybe the very original 3-button digitals would have come out of Japan, but certainly not in a very long time. I don't think Casio is making much of anything in Japan other than high-end limited edition G-Shocks and things like that. Another giveaway, which wouldn't immediately be apparent, that tells you that this is not real, is that the module inside here is out of spec. I think these Casio quartz modules are, to pass muster, they've got to be less than plus or minus half a second per day. And usually when they're off, they're almost always at least somewhat off, but they'll generally gain a little bit of time. It's much more infrequently that they lose time. This watch does lose time, and it's just barely out of spec. It loses about 0.6 seconds per day. I mean, certainly keeps perfectly good enough time to keep you on track. And I mean, it looks good. I would wear this watch. I have worn this. Actually, I'm not sure about that. I might be lying. The hang tag's still on there. I may not have worn this watch at all. But I certainly would wear this watch. But it's definitely not a real Casio. Unless somebody has some kind of revelation they want to drop on me that tells me that I'm wrong. What is confusing about this watch, however, is the fact that it does seem to be made of quality components. It seems right up there with an actual Casio F-91W. And so I wonder, is this thing completely fraudulent, as is the Kyrgyzstan special? Oh, that's my F-84W. That's like the gold standard of 3-button digitals. Is it completely fraudulent like the Kyrgyzstan special here? Or is it made up out of Casio components and assembled by a third party? Everything just seems a little bit too nice. If there's somebody in Sri Lanka who has some answers about where these watches are coming from. I would love to know. I really don't want to know anything about this watch. I may end up just throwing it out the window in a couple of minutes when this video is over. But this watch really fascinates me because even up against the F-84W, which I think outshines the F-91W by a little bit, it looks really, really good. There's no egregious errors. Everything has been trimmed nicely. It's really up to what I would consider to be Casio standards. So, but anyway, I guess my point of this whole video is to make you aware that when you're buying stuff on eBay, you really don't know what you're getting. And if I hadn't actively been seeking out a counterfeit watch, I may not have really noticed that this thing wasn't what it appears to be when I first bought it. I may have gone through thinking I had an actual Casio F-94W. So buy from reputable sellers, read those feedback ratings, buy from authorized dealers if you can figure out how to do so. I know sometimes it can be hard to find more unusual models like this. But keep in mind, if on eBay it seems like a deal that's too good to be true, it probably is. So I guess that's pretty much all I have to say about counterfeit Casio watches. Some of them are really horrible. Some of them are actually pretty nice, although they're obviously not real. But they're definitely out there, and you should definitely be aware of that when you're buying watches on eBay or some other sort of third-party selling site where you can't verify the authenticity of what you're buying. So let's go back over to the bookshelves and wrap this up. So as inexpensive as the genuine articles are when you're talking about these very simple plastic Casio digital watches, it's hard for me to imagine how there has become such a robust industry in counterfeiting these watches. Even the F-84W, while it can be a little bit difficult to get your hands on and it takes a while to get one shipped to you from Japan, is still quite cheap. I think I paid less than $20 for this one, and that was mostly to do with the fact that they are rather hard to come by here in this country. But the fact remains, the industry for counterfeiting these watches is extremely robust, and it can present a real hazard when you're buying through eBay or Etsy or one of these other third-party sort of clearing houses on the internet. So I would strongly encourage you to buy these watches. They're easy to come by. Well, the F-84 is not particularly easy to come by, but they are inexpensive. You can build up a nice little collection of them for very little money. But I would also encourage you to buy them either from a very, very well reviewed eBay seller or go through an authorized dealer. Get it from a verified source, because these things are, the market for these is just absolutely fraught with all sorts of fraud. Now, interestingly enough, when I was trying to get a couple of bona fide counterfeits, if you will, to make this video, that was actually quite difficult. It took me a while to guarantee to myself that what I was buying was garbage. I was successful in doing so, especially with that F-91 clone from Kyrgyzstan. That's a real piece of trash. But anyway, I hope this video has proved informative to some of you. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, you know the drill. Like, share, tell your friends. If you're not already a subscriber and you'd like to be kept up to date on what's going on the channel, please hit the subscribe button down below, smash the bell. That'll allow YouTube to send you notifications when I post new content to the channel. And when that happens, I want to see each of you here then. Later, guys, and Merry Christmas.